So we're just going to take a moment to sit and relax. If you've got a blanket or bolster or block to sit on, that would be great. And we'll just take a bit of time to settle ourselves down, lengthen the spine out, get the pelvis into more of a neutral position, which might need a bit of wriggling around. And take maybe a moment to consider something that we can be grateful for in this season approaching. I think it's obviously there's a lot of commercialism with the festive season, but sometimes taking a moment to be able to reflect on something that you can be grateful for that is very simple and close to your heart, that doesn't have a financial value to it, but maybe more of an emotional or a physical side to it. And slowing the breath down while you take that moment. And start to just roll the shoulders around very gently. So following the breath. And we are going to get a little bit of extension and flexion through the spine. And the pelvis is going to tilt forwards and backwards a little bit. So there's going to be quite a lot of movement through the spine. It's not quite cat-cow, but moving into that kind of territory. And we'll see if we can roll the shoulders in the opposite direction. And then we'll release. We're going to untangle the legs and lie down on the floor. We're going to come into the banana pose. So I'm going to stand up just so it's a little bit easier to see what we're going to do. We're going to come down onto the floor, lying on the ground. The feet will be together. We'll take the arms out to the side and out above the head. And I'm going to take my right hand onto my left wrist and then pull my shoulders over towards the right side. We're going to lengthen the left arm out by pulling on the right hand a little bit to the side. And then we'll move the feet over to the corner as well, same direction. And if it feels comfortable, we're going to cross the legs over. And the idea is to keep the shoulders and the hips flat and square on the ground. And we're going to spend a few minutes on each side. So I shall come to join you. And if there's any feelings or sensations that feel a little bit awkward or sustained in the sciatic area, then simply untangling the ankles could bring you back to where you need to be. always the option of releasing the feet a little bit further back into the center line if we've overcommitted into the pose. So breathing, once we're settled into the side ribs on that left side. And giving the intercostal muscles a chance to stretch out. Get a little bit of lateral loading into the discs in the spine. And we'll ease ourselves back into the center. Cross the hands over to the opposite side. Shuffle the shoulders and the legs separately over to the left side, taking hold of that right wrist, easing out, trying to keep the shoulders flat and square to the ground, as we said, and the hips as well. So taking a little bit of focus into that area. And scanning around the body to see if there are any areas that feel a little bit tight. Seeing if we can breathe some space into those muscles and joints, which is something of a commitment to try and let muscles relax. When they're tight, they want to hold on. We need to encourage them and let them know it's safe, and can bring about a sense of fear, letting go sometimes. But we should be in a safe position in this pose. And sometimes that mind-body connection allows us to reach the places that normally just trying to breathe and be in the pose wouldn't get us to. So this is a deeper kind of stretch. There's almost an emotional connection to it. And we'll slowly bring ourselves back onto the center. Ease the hands back down on the side of the body. Bring the feet back into the center. And draw the knees a little closer towards the body, the heels in towards the bottom. allow yourself to just gently rock out the hips from side to side, so you're getting a little bit of movement through the spine. And then we'll turn onto our right side and use the hands to press down into the floor. Ease ourselves up very gently and turn around. So I'm going to send the feet to the back of the mat, come onto our bellies and onto our elbows for Sphinx pose. So the big difference with this is that we're actually letting ourselves sink down to the floor. You need to have the elbows just a little ahead of the shoulders. And you can lengthen the spine up to start with and lengthen the legs out. And then see if you can let the shoulders relax. So the chest will sink down through towards the ground. Your choice of where you hold the head. But you're trying to let the shoulders relax back and upwards at the same time. So you're getting a bit of a shoulder shrug. Nice loose belly. And then turn your attention when you feel ready into your lower back and the muscles immediately between the lower back and the buttocks, around that area. Now see if you can let the flesh release, back of the legs, front of the thighs, right down to the toes. Enjoying that easing down. And then we're going to release from here. So the easiest way to do that is to roll onto whichever side you prefer and draw the knees in a little bit. Use the hands to lift up. We're going to come into bridge pose and we're going to support that by, in my case, using a couple of bricks. Now you could use bricks and blocks in whatever combination that suits the height that you want to work to. It doesn't need to be extreme. We're going to take the feet out wider than the hips, which is unusual for a bridge pose, but the intention is for the knees to be able to rock into the center. So when you're ready, you're going to allow yourself to lift the hips up slowly and place either a block or blocks or a blanket that's rolled up or a bolster or even a cushion underneath the lower back, just so we start to get a little bit of an arch in. You can let the knees roll into the center line and then take the hands up towards the sky. Let them drop back to the ground gently as we exhale. And if that feels a little bit awkward, if the elbows and the forearms don't reach the floor easily, you just take the elbows out to the side a little bit so you get more into a cactus shape through the shoulders and arms. And we're just going to let ourselves relax. And the big benefit here is that, again, we're able to release those lower back muscles and the glutes and the muscles across the belly, which when we normally work in bridge pose are working quite hard and lengthening out. In this case, everything is soft, we're supported and secure. And we're just letting gravity work on the spine in a different way. We spend the whole day standing, gravity drawing us down. This is a different approach to just bringing that little bit of pressure into the body. And hopefully different enough from lying on the bed to make it feel that it has value. And then to lift out of this, we're going to slowly bring the hands back down alongside the body and take hold of those bricks and blocks, then draw the belly into the spine a little bit. So feeling the muscles contract, press into the feet lightly, lifting off just enough to take those bricks out and then lay the spine down for maybe a breath or two, back down to the floor. Once we arrive, we're going to roll onto the right side, draw the knees in towards the body, use the hands to press into the floor to lift back up. And move ourselves into a sitting posture, which is going to be butterfly. So I'm going to take a block underneath the bottom, could be again, a blanket that's folded several times or a cushion. And I'm going to bring the soles of the feet together, but quite a distance forwards of the knees. So a nice diamond shape through the legs here, and just rolling a little bit before we move into this to lift the muscles around the sitting bones. And then I'm going to bring the hands forwards, lengthen the spine up, drop the chin in towards the chest, and let the spine roll down to the floor. So not focused on drawing forwards, letting the spine hang down. So very rounded back, trying to keep the shoulders relaxed away from the ears to make a bit of space for breath and oxygen and blood. And then the pelvis might tilt forwards, but it also might tilt backwards a little bit. So we're not really too concerned with where it arrives. I'm just going to let the head hang down and allow ourselves to really sink into the smallest space we can occupy and still breathe. Feel the fascia stretching and the discs opening. So hopefully for an even feeling of stretch from the crown of the head through to the tailbone and everything in between. Belly is relaxed. Breathing into the back of the ribs a little bit more. I'm going to slowly lift out of that using the fingers to help lift. And we'll use the hands around the knees just to draw the legs back up and lengthen the legs out. Now I'm going to slide forwards off of the block so that the back of my knees can get a little lower to the floor. You can again use a rolled up blanket, or if you've got a bolster that's very flat and old like mine, you can take that underneath the back of the knees. So they're lifted a little bit just to give a little release into the hamstrings. It's the caterpillar pose, which is a seated forward fold. Again, we're going to drop the chest down and let ourselves lean forwards. You can bring the elbows onto the shins and just let yourself sink in. And the big difference really here to maybe the hatha approach to a seated forward fold is that we're not concerned what happens with the legs. So in my case, when I sit forwards, my feet tend to turn out a little bit, and my thighs roll out to the side as well in sympathy with that. So if that's the case, that's where your body wants to travel to, that's fine. If your feet are more pointing towards the sky, then great, that's okay as well. And then also we're not grabbing hold of the ankles, we're just letting in my case, the forearms sit on top of my knees and shins. It could be on the bolsters if I could get down a little bit lower, but this evening it feels like that's about the place to be. The other thing I notice is, depending on what I've been doing in the week, the ability to get lower or higher in this pose changes quite dramatically. So it's taken a while for me to understand that it is a question of letting it actually happen and see where you get to. Being a little bit more accepting of the reality of what my body can offer, as opposed to any preconceptions my mind might have of what my practice should look like. I'll take a little breath from here. Ease the hands back underneath the body a little more and use them to press my way back up. And I'll take the bolster out to the side. I'm going to lie down on the floor, so just bring the heels in closer towards the buttocks. Use the hands behind to give myself a little bit of support. And I'm going to take a spiral twist here. So let the arms out 90 degrees to the body, palms up. Spend a little time wriggling the shoulders underneath. I'm going to let my hips move over towards the left side of the mat. There's no real science to that. It's a comfortable position for you to be in. Lengthen the right leg out, and then once I've done that, I'll place the left foot on top of that right thigh. Let the legs roll over towards the right. So I'm starting to stack the hips, and maybe the shoulders stay on the ground, maybe they lift a little bit. I'm going to then use my right hand on top of that left thigh and just allow myself to move the foot away so that the shin is running sort of along the lines of the mat rather than having the foot stay on the thigh. And after a couple of breaths here, I can actually notice that I can turn the hips a little further in. So a tiny adjustment. And that's very comfortable on the hips. Now my shoulders are off the ground. So I'm going to do another little adjustment there and draw myself in. So now I know that I'm in the lowest position I can get into in this pose. Eyes can look directly up towards the ceiling or the way that you're leaning into the twist or away from the twist, whatever feels good in the neck. Again, very much depending on what you've probably been doing for the day, whether it feels good to turn the head in any particular direction. And we'll take a little breath from there and let ourselves roll back. Take our time, bring the feet in, realign the body on the mat. I'm just going to move my bolster over the other side so I've got plenty of space. Reset the arms out again. It's time taking the hips over to the right, lengthening the left leg out. Bringing the foot on and then rolling into that first sort of phase, which we sit in for a good 30 seconds or so. And now the body's opened a little bit. You can make that extra adjustments into the hips. And that extra adjustment into the shoulders. Again, remember that the foot would have left the thigh and the shin running parallel to the mat. So in addition to feeling this in the spine, in my body, I can kind of feel my TFL and I think perhaps my piriformis stretching a little bit as well. A little bit of extra weight of the hand on the knee, helping draw it down, just opening the hips out a bit further. And we'll release from here. And roll ourselves gently back into the center. Allow the knees to lift towards the sky as we bring the heels in towards the bottom. And take my block and just place it underneath the back of my head. And we're going to move into the pose that looks very much like child's pose. Actually has a different name in the yin practice, just really to remind ourselves that we adapt this in a different way. So first of all, just turning the soles of the feet together as the knees coming towards the body and the feet lift away from the floor. And take the hands down towards the ankles. Lengthen the spine out so that I can actually feel my tailbone almost touching the floor, so as flat as I possibly can be. And I'm going to take another breath and make the decision of whether I can reach my fingers around the sides of my feet towards the little toe. If not, I'm going to stay holding on to my ankles, which tonight feels like that's the right thing to do. And I'm going to keep the knees where they are and simply raise the soles of the feet towards the sky. So feet are probably wider than the mat. Shins are vertical. Spine is very flat and long. I actually want to try and let the pelvis and the tailbone sink down to the floor in this pose. And allow the hamstrings to open out. Let the hip joints open as well. So the knees might naturally want to lengthen out a bit wider, which is another reason for taking the option of holding on to the ankles rather than the feet. Gives you more space, more options. So we'll take the option of drawing the feet back in towards the body, bring the knees more into the center, roll onto the right side, use the hands to lift away from the floor. And we're going to come up onto hands and knees, and then just sitting onto the heels. So you can, if you know that your knees are a little bit tight and the ankles are a bit tight, use props. So you could actually just lift yourself a little bit higher so it's easier on the knees. And we're going to take the strap and have that close by as well. Sit up nice and tall and just take the arms out wide. And we're going to take eagle arms to start with. So we're going to bring the left arm across, the right arm over the top. Bring the elbows into a bend, palms together, and then lower the elbows down into the chest and let the shoulders roll back a little bit towards the back of the mat. So we can direct the breath a little bit more into the shoulders and the back of the ribs. So we can use the power of the breath to increase the stretch under the scapulas. And then release the arms out. Cross them over the opposite way. And just rest with elbows into the shoulders back. And we'll release the hands completely and just let the arms come down. Give them a little shake out. And we'll take hold of our strap. So I'm going to take the buckle into my left hand, wrap the strap around a couple of times just so that it's not going to bounce about. I'm going to take that left hand up towards the sky. I'm going to use my right hand to just help lift the tricep and open the armpit out a little bit more as I bend the elbow and drop my left hand behind the back of my neck towards the nape. I'm going to use the right hand to kind of open the shoulder joint out a little bit more And the right hand's going to come down, thumb pointing down towards the sky, palm towards the back. I'm going to move it around very slowly, find the strap, walk the hand up, and then start to use the fingers to just draw them a little closer. And see how close you can get on an exhale. And then allow the breath to be big and dynamic in the ribs, and see if you can get a sense of moving the elbows towards the back of the mat. We just go about a minute here, and then we'll do the other side. And then for this evening, that will be it. And we'll release out of that. Take it over to the second side. So again, we just bind the strap around. Take the hand up towards the sky. Use that left hand to just lift it up a little bit, get a little bit more space into the shoulder blade. Drop the hand down, and then palm down towards the back of the mat, thumbs down, walk the fingers in. Take a moment to see how close you can get on the exhale. And then use the breath inhale to get a little bit more stretch and direct the elbows towards the back of the mat a little bit more. And then we'll release from there. Take the opportunity to untangle the legs. We're going to sit back on the blocks. Just going to stretch those out. Roll the ankles around a couple of times. Sitting up nice and tall. Bring heels in towards the groin. Sitting comfortably. Bring the hands in towards our heart. So we take a breath in, closing the eyes. On the exhale, let the chin drop. With a simple bow to the floor, seal our practice for this evening. Thank you very much for joining me. Inhale on the way back up. Open the eyes. Namaste. Have a wonderful Christmas. See you soon.